Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So Obama is incorrigible. How do we know? He's not the kind of puppet who has the will and the force and the intellectual strength or moral strength to rebel. He just can't do it. And here's the proof. The foreclosure issue, fraud closures. This is a made-to-order issue. If you want to get some economic populist street creds, right? Remember, when the economic populist comes on the scene with real populism, economic populism, the cultural populist is discredited. He's standing there with empty slogans because the cultural populist is going to line up in favor of the rich Wall Street interests that he claims not to like, right? The elite, the ruling class. Yet, okay, so along comes the fraud closure issue, right? We've got Bank of America and Chase Manhattan, J.P. Morgan. We've got General Motors Acceptance Corporation, Ditech Funding in its current transmogrification, and they admit that they've been stealing people's houses, made to order. And we had a constituency immediately appear in the Democratic Party, Wasserman Schultz, Grayson, Van Hollen, Governor O'Malley of Maryland. We had a whole bunch of them, even Reid and Pelosi, willing to go along with this. Get some economic populist street creds by saying, stop foreclosures, you banks, freeze foreclosures, and we're going to pass a bill. Or indeed, Elizabeth Warren issues regulations, which she can do under this new law. Find some technicality to stop foreclosures. There are quite a few within that bill, right? If you had the political will to do it. But no, this would have been the saving of the Democratic Party in many, many districts to come out and say, we're for stopping foreclosures. We're not siding with those hyenas and jackals who want to put American families out on the street with their furniture in the road, on the sidewalk, and the gutter. We're here to keep Americans in their homes. The bankers can shove it. The bankers can eat the losses. And as a matter of fact, some of those bankers are going to jail, and they're going to be heavily fined. 50 state attorneys general in the field against the bankers. Even the most reactionary states were forced to take part. What does Obama do? He sabotages the moment. He says, oh, no, we can't do anything. He's constantly putting out lines saying, we've got to make sure that the lenders have the protection. The bankers have got to be the protection. The public be damned. The homeowners be damned. American working people be damned, says Obama. I'm standing up for my Wall Street masters. And at that point, the issue is gone. The issue has now been lost. The guy is incorrigible. Second point. This is the most obvious of them all. Rhode Island governor. Here we have Caprio. I don't know Caprio from Adam. But if you're the head of the Democratic Party, you're supposed to support Democrats in a beleaguered election when your back is up against the wall and you're going to lose big. A governorship, especially now when the redistricting is on the table, right? The gerrymanders are going to be drawn for the whole next decade. You want to get those governors, right? That's going to be your reelection in 2012 if you're still around. What does Obama do? He says, I have the liberal Republican blue blood, Lincoln Chafee, blue blood, upper class, financier, patrician, Republican, Boston Brahmin, whatever he is. I'm supporting him, so I can't endorse the Democrats. So Caprio tells him to shove it. Veteran political analyst, you could see Begala and these people on television, astounded at the ineptitude, just the stupidity, the bungling by Obama. He's not a politician. He has no political skills whatsoever. He is a narcissist, and once the charisma of the messianic rhetoric and the utopian promises and singing tomorrows, once that vanishes, then Obama is left there as a very mediocre, bungling, and really unappetizing figure from every conceivable point of view. Here's a third one. Those two have been talked about to some extent. The one that is not talked about, an elephant in the room, the capital strike. There's a capital strike, capital lockout. You can hear every Republican saying this. Why our companies have built up many trillions of dollars of cash reserve, but they're not going to spend them in this climate of uncertainty. We don't know what Obama and those Democrats might do, so we're not going to invest. We're going to let the United States wallow in depression and rot in depression until we get guarantees that our super profits are on the table. Well, the answer to that is you're a traitor. You're a subversive. You call that patriotic citizenship? Are you a Chinese agent? Are you creating the jobs overseas? It's a capital strike. It's a capital lockout. They say that, they got 10 or 20% more cash than they did 2 years ago. I just heard this Scythian or whatever his name is in Northern Virginia say this in a local debate here. Well, that's called treason. That's called aid and comfort to the economic enemy. Now, the Roosevelt people knew what to do. 1937, when a similar capital strike or capital lockout emerged, we had Robert Jackson practicing for those Nazis at Nuremberg, right? He practiced dealing with Nazis by dealing with what he called big business fascism, because that's what it was. This was the earlier generation of the Koch brothers. This was Irénée DuPont. This was the Pew family. This was the Pitcairns of Pittsburgh plate glass, telling people, we lost the 1936 election. Let's get Roosevelt. Let's try to discredit him by essentially sabotaging the U.S. economy in the face of Hitler, because by this time we've had Hitler in the Rhineland. Hitler's on his way into Austria quite soon, and we're headed for the outbreak of the Second World War. And these reactionary pro-fascist and proto-fascist big business elements, Wall Street elements, of course, were interested in sabotaging the United States. Now, this is now 1936. At the end of the campaign, Roosevelt in Madison Square Garden, he says that the forces of organized money hate me, and I welcome their hatred. And the place went wild. That's the kind of class struggle we need. Working people against this tiny clique of rich plutocrats, right? You can make a good argument that the entire Republican Party depends on a money machine, which is a few hundred people at the most. Concerning the sociology of the Tea Party, let's also remember here, this is now completely astroturfed. The Washington Post, Sunday, October 24th, Gauging the Scope of the Tea Party Movement in America by Amy Gardner. This is some sociological survey by the Washington Post, which is that most of these groups, right, the Tea Party Patriots, which is a corporate front, Wall Street front, says that they represent 2,300 grassroots local groups. The Washington Post tried to find the 2,300. They found 1,400 Tea Party groups, and they were able to get in touch with 647 of them, and some of those were willing to answer a questionnaire. And it looks like most of them are very small and don't do anything political. In other words, this was a flash in the pan. This was an upsurge really in the first half of 2009. The entire thing has now been completely co-opted, as we used to say in the 60s, co-opted, absorbed. It's now manipulated. It's instrumentalized, used, deployed by finance capital, by the Koch brothers, by the Smith Richardson, Mellon Scaife, Olin, these people, Cato Institute, itself a creature of the Koch brothers, by the Koch heads, the Koch heads, whatever you want to call them. You can compare this to the 1930s when we had those Sentinels of the Republic paid for by Pew, the silver shirts, when we had the National Association of Manufacturers in the same role today as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The problem is that in those days, the mass support for these groups was smaller, and the difference is Obama. The difference between Roosevelt and Obama is that to mobilize masses in the face of a successful New Deal, much harder than to do it in the face of an elitist, a snob, someone full of contempt for the United States, contempt for working people of any kind, contempt for blue-collar workers and working people in general. Makes it easy for the reactionary financiers to deploy these astroturf movements. It's a kind of a greenhouse vivarium, a perfect environment with Obama, as was predicted in Obama the Postmodern too. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.